So I've been sober for about 2.5 years, other than a short relapse. And my thing when I was using was always that I need to get to a certain place. I want to be somewhere where I'm self-sufficient. I'm not relying on my family, because I went through that so much to where I didn't have anything. And now I've been so blessed the last couple years, 1.5 years. I've had my own business, been making a lot of money, and the more that I'm financially stable, the more that I realize that it's not what brings fulfillment in life. You know, when you're in a dark place, you always want something different. But when you get what you thought you wanted and it doesn't bring what you thought it should bring, you have to reevaluate what you were looking for. And so for me, making money hasn't been near as fulfilling. And it just has brought me to a place to where I realize that I need to find myself. I need to find what I was created for, where I'm going, and what I'm trying to accomplish in life. And while money may be a part of that, money will never bring the satisfaction that you want out of life. And so this is just about helping people understand that having money in your pocket and being financially secure is such a small percentage of having fulfillment in life. You know, there's things that are so much bigger than that. I have dreams of what I want to do, the people that I want to help, the things that I want my story to impact people. And money will take you there, but money will not bring what you're looking for. So it's just my encouragement. Look, money is a part of it, but look beyond that. Look within yourself. Find something bigger than that. Find your purpose and let that drive you. Okay, your purpose should drive you. Your desire for money should never drive you. It's not enough. It will never last. It's just like the drug that felt good for a while. It feels amazing to have money in your account, but it won't keep you on the road. Depression, anxiety, fear of the future is not overcome when you have a big bank account. So just know, like, while that might be a small part of it, there's so much more to that. Every person has been created to have a drive to take them where they want to go, and money will not take you there. So I just hope everybody out there can find that. You can find something that will take you to the place to where you can be financially stable, but there's a bigger thing that's going to drive you and take you there. So I'm going to share a couple stories about some of my darkest moments, some of the things I went through, and I always feel like going back and seeing where you were at has value to where you're at today, because it shows progress, it shows progression. And so I think one of my darkest moments ever was I had gone through about a 6-month period to where I was, you know, at my lowest. I didn't have any money. My family was starting to recognize that if I stayed at their house, that I was going to steal from them. And so over a couple months period of time, I wasn't allowed to stay anywhere. And I remember one weekend, 3 of my brothers lived together and they were going to Indianapolis to work. And I literally had nowhere to stay. I had no money. I would wake up in the morning and try to find out how to get the money I needed to not be sick. And so it was a Friday morning and I drove around all night. I'd had enough dope to stay up and I was tired and I knew I needed to sleep. I knew my brothers had just left that morning, so I pull over into my brother's house. The thing was, it was early in the morning and I parked my truck down the road because I didn't know if they were still there. So I parked my truck and stayed there. I came up to their house, it was locked. I took a pry bar, I broke into their house, broke the locks off the window, got in there, got on the couch, ended up getting into my brother's computer with no way to not get sick the next day, no place to go the next day. And you know, this is one of the biggest things of guilt that I had carried for a long time, is I was going through their place and I found a chop saw, a DeWalt sliding compound chop saw in the garage. And I created a new Craigslist account. I advertised the chop saw, which was worth about $450 for $125. The drugs that I was using that night, they're supposed to put you to sleep. Heroin helps you to relax, but there was something else in it, and I had the worst anxiety. It was all I could do just to make the ad, to go to sleep. I ended up having a message. My screen was cracked. I spent hours trying to get that phone to come up, trying to get the screen on just enough. I received a call that night, I think from my mom, and I just somehow hit the right button even though my screen was completely cracked, but I had no communication with anyone. I'd broke into their house, knew what I was doing, But there's no option at this point. I mean, you're going down or you're going to stay alive. And I was in that mode, just trying to stay alive. And so I advertised the chop saw. I had a message the next morning. The first thing I did is I got up, I walked back to my truck, and I took that chop saw early in the morning and met some guy at a Speedway and sold that chop saw for I think I actually sold it for a little more than I got for it. I was trying to sell it that cheap. And that moment, when I got that money, I had screwed my brother over. I was literally sick by that time already. And those are moments in my life when I look back and I realize how low I'd gotten. Like, there was nothing that can describe the guilt. The only thing that could shadow that was when I did those drugs to kill that pain. And that's what drove me. That's what drove me to my next, my next thing that I did that was gonna sink me even further, but that's the only option I had. And I wasn't willing to humble myself to go and ask for the help that I needed. And I just kept pushing and pushing, and every story I have would just get worse. So when I was, when I didn't have money to buy the stuff I needed, a lot of times your brain starts to spin and you're trying to figure out, how am I gonna get what I need so I'm not sick? You have money. Somehow I always drummed up just a little bit of money. Well, I would pay attention to the drug dealers when I would hand them money and buy drugs. So I would look, are they counting the money? Are they paying attention? Are they doing a quick handoff? Where do they want me to meet them? The more public the neighborhood, the quicker the handoff would happen. So I got to a point where this one drug dealer in Warren, Ohio, he would grab my money, he was paranoid, and he'd run. So I started shorting him. I'd short him a couple dollars. And I just remember one night specifically, I had nothing, I was getting sick. I think I had $6. And I called him and I told him, I have this much money, $80, something like that. Here's what I want. But I need you to meet me here because it's late and I've been seeing the cops down there. So my story to him was to get him to the right place to where I needed him to go so the handoff would be quick and he would look at it. And I just remember coming down in there and handing him the money, and he started handing me the dope, and suddenly he drew back and he looked at the money and my heart just sank. It was one of the most sickening moments of my life. He looked down, he saw the $6, and he realized I was gonna screw him over. He grabbed my money and took off and cursed me as he left. And there I'm sitting 45 minutes from home, barely the gas to get home, and no way to get what I came for. So another thing that I really learned with the things that I went through and how I handle life today was there's this thing of instant gratification. We want to feel good now. Nobody wants to feel bad, okay? And it comes down to the Red Bull, cigarettes, okay? While those might be smaller things, it's the same principle. And I've really become aware of this over the last couple months, is that everybody wants to feel good now, but there's a price to pay. There's always a cost. We were created to find within us what it takes to feel good and be happy, satisfied, and fulfilled. When we're reaching out and trying to find those things, yeah, they're gonna help you right now. But what we forget is the cost. There's always a cost. There's always a payback. It's like we're manipulating our serotonin and the levels in our brain and our energy. Everything that we're doing is to make us feel better now, but we forget the bigger picture. Again, a lot of this comes back to bigger picture. We really need to start to realize that, and I've been becoming painfully aware of this. I just turned 40, okay? The things that I do now to make myself feel good, most of those things are actually costing. They're coming off the end of my life. And so if you can be aware of the bigger picture, keep in mind that what you're doing today is such a small percentage of your future, of your tomorrow. When you have kids, I don't have kids right now, but when I have kids and the things that I do now, the choices that I make, if I could just imagine that I could do something today to make their life easier, even though I don't have them, I'm aware of that. When I was in dope and drugs and addiction, it absolutely worked like that. I would feel good today. I would find this. I would find a way. I would rob you, whatever it took. But it cost me. I was in rehab with 3 or 4 felonies hanging over my head. I had to go through that. Today, if you manipulate everything in life to try to make yourself feel good right now, there's always a price to pay. So just be aware of the bigger picture. Just know that life is more than feeling good today. There's so much more to to finding joy and happiness and fulfillment than just feeling good right now, having to have what you think you want. First of all, our minds are fickle. Most people that have been through hell don't understand, or you need to learn to understand that what you want and what you think is going to make you happy, just like the money thing, it's not going to get you there, okay? Well, it's part of it. If you don't look at the bigger picture and you don't find balance in your life, then none of those things are ever going to count for where you're trying to go. They're going to help you in the moment. It's going to be good for a little bit, and then you're going to pay the price. And so are you willing to pay that price? Can you see that those little choices you make every day will take you to a place to where later you're paying a much greater price? When I sat in rehab, I realized every time I got high was the stupidest thing I did. Every time I couldn't say no or couldn't step back and ask for help, every time that I was too proud to humble myself and apologize to people, every time I got kicked out of rehab was because I couldn't humble myself. I couldn't see the bigger picture. I didn't know what the bigger picture was, but I did know there was a bigger picture. And so if you step back and you stop living in the moment, people will say live in the moment. Live in the moment, you only live once. I'm telling you, that's bad advice, okay? You only live once, but don't live in the moment, okay? Make it bigger than that. Well, there's things in life that you want to do that you need to, find joy and happiness in that moment. If you are trying to just manipulate yourself and your situations to feel good now, then you should know that, most of us are aware of it. It's just really hard to process through all that in the moment when you're in pain. But pain is never overcome in an instant. It's never overcome by a cigarette, alcohol, drugs. It's overcome by a change inside of us. And that's the hard part, the challenge that we all face. And that's my challenge to you guys, is that you would look beyond the moment. You would look and see that the bigger picture is more important than feeling good in the moment. So this is kind of a review a little bit, going back to the original video that we shot. I think it was in August of 2017, and that was 2 months after I got out of rehab. And I often go back and I realize, like, the place I was in, what I felt and experienced, how confident I was that I could do this thing and make it, and I was. And so I was in a really good place. I achieved a lot of things I wanted to achieve. I got into a business with a business partner. I ended up relapsing, actually about within the first year. And look, it can happen to anybody. I don't care how bad you don't want to use drugs. If you're not doing the right things, there's a good chance you're going to relapse. What kept you from relapsing the last time may not keep you from relapsing this time. So be aware of where you're at, of your own emotional growth. And so I went out to Montana to my nephew who was shooting this video. I went out there. I had relapsed for about 5 or 6 weeks. I was in a really dark place. I had, done all these things. I had achieved the things I wanted to, and I was working. But you know what? I messed up. And we all go through that. We all mess up. And that's okay. You know what? I came out of there and I was on the verge of losing everything I had, and I knew it. So I buckled down. I remember just at a family get together, I told my mom and my sisters what was going on. I told her exactly what had happened, how much I was struggling with not using again. My mom said, I'll tell you what, I'll go back with you to your house, I'll sit with you, and we'll do this thing. And I committed to it. And you know what? Within 3 weeks, I was back in the gym. And for me, that's always been my gauge. I was back in the gym. For the next year and a half, I left my business partner, I started my own business. I was consistent in the gym. I achieved so many things. And man, life ain't easy, okay? I'm still in that place. I still have my own business. I went through a breakup, somebody that I really thought was gonna be the right one. And I'm telling you, those are the things that can take you down if you're not aware of it. I've seen so many people, so many friends in rehab that were destroyed by emotion and an emotional connection. So if you're gonna get back into a relationship, make sure you know that you have the ability to go through the pain. Don't let the pain take you back to what you've done over and over and over. There's that voice in your head that still says, kill the pain at all cost. And that cost is usually, for most of us addicts, was drugs, because it killed the pain. But the price to pay was too great. And so this time around, I've been able to step back. Now, I haven't been in the gym for a couple months. You know, my vulnerable story right now is I felt really guilty, okay? I've not done this, the end of this summer, what I was hoping to do. I've not stayed healthy. I'm still staying connected, fairly connected to people, and you know, I'm not struggling with depression. That's a monster, man. For most people in addiction, depression is bigger or as big as drugs, and if it's not bigger, it's the reason you go to drugs. So for me, I've been thankful that I've kept myself away from depression. I know when it comes close. I know when it comes knocking. I know what I have to do. And so while I haven't been in the gym and I haven't done the things that I've been wanting to do, I've been able to be aware of my surroundings. Especially the last 3 months, I've had to be aware of my surroundings. The people that I'm hanging out with, I have my own house. The people that I let stay at my house, you know, the environment I put myself in. And if I'm in a negative environment, you've got to go and you've got to find a way to reconnect with your people. You know, church has been a big thing for me, just like the gym. And I've always found, you know, friendships and connections there and people that care about me. And I had quit going to church this summer, but the last couple of months, I've went back. I've had to go back. I had to find that place that I knew was going to ground me, the people that I knew were going to hold me accountable, because you can't do it on your own, okay? I've had money, business, my house. 3 years ago, I was in a homeless shelter, and I'm at where I'm at today, and I could still fall. If I don't become accountable to people, if I don't allow other people to speak into my life, and if I'm not aware of the bigger picture at all times, we're all susceptible to fall. And so if you relapse, if you're going through a hard time, no matter what you do, look, the things that I went through and all those difficult things that I experienced, every one of them has built a belief in me. I know that what I'm going through right now, I can get out of it. And while I may face discouragement, I still know I can get through it, because if I can get out of heroin and crack addiction, out of the homeless shelter, if I can dig myself out of a relapse after I had everything I wanted and still relapsed, then I believe I can get out of anything today. So use that, man. Let it be part of what what your ammunition is to attack what is trying to oppress you. There's always something you can use. It's not fear, it's not negativity, it's simply wisdom. Use the things you've learned in life to get yourself out of the trouble, or to keep yourself out of those places where you know, we all know when we're close. So just use whatever you can, whatever you've got around you, just use it. So I just want to break down into like the 5 most important things that I think that I did to get sober, and that we all need to do. If you are in a really dark place, you've been trying to get out, you've been trying to stop, there's a couple steps that you have to take, okay? You can't just wake up one morning and decide to quit using. You have to get to a place to where you know that isn't gonna happen. So that's the first step, is admitting you have a problem, and you can't just stop tomorrow. You know, that thought would go through my head over and over. Yeah, I'll stop tomorrow. I'll stop next week. I have this thing that's coming up, and I'm pretty sure this is gonna push me into it. Man, just admit that you got a problem and that you can't stop. To me, that's number one. That's the most important. That takes humility, and you have to humble yourself. And in that place, that can be difficult. But if you can't do that, and you can't stop tomorrow, then you're not going anywhere. The next thing I would say would be to talk to somebody about it. Find somebody. Maybe you don't have someone in your life that you really respect or that's been through addiction, but find somebody that has been through something in life. Somebody that, anything's better than nothing, and talk to somebody and tell them, I can't stop. I can't stop tomorrow. I've tried it, and I know that I need help. So then you find somebody, so then you're building. Now you have this, now you're starting on the right path. And the next thing is you need to find help, okay? The third thing is find help. Somewhere, you and your friends and your family and that person that you talk to, find a way. It might not be rehab for you. For me, from my experience and the people that I've cared about that have went through it, most people that have been in addiction for years need to go through rehab. And the reason is you have to step out of your life. Imagine trying to stop a habit while you're in the middle of your comfort zone. Okay, you have to step away and kind of have this moment to work on yourself. It's like the Army. You could never go to a 9-to-5 job and train for the Army. Okay, you're not dedicated or committed enough. You have too many things that are going on. Your family's there. You have to step out of your life and get help. And if it's not rehab, just, whatever it might be for you, realize that you have to give yourself the room to heal. The longer you've been in it, the more time that you need to heal. And then number 4, I would say, would be actually to take that action, and in the process of taking that action to find help is committing to it, okay? We've all stopped. Anybody watching this that's ever been addicted has probably stopped using for what, a day, 2, 3, maybe 30 days. But that was it. You have to commit and understand that you can't overcome a 5-year habit in 30 days. Okay, so you commit to the process. You dig deep, you talk to people, you pray about it. Whatever you have to do to get your deepest self, your spirit, to know that this habit isn't going to go away unless I fight. And so you commit to that fight. You look yourself in the mirror and you tell yourself, I'll do whatever it takes. You don't start there because you have to have something else behind you that has brought you to that place. So with this process, number 4 is committing to it and actually doing something. And so then I would say number 5 is once you're committed to it and you start to actually do it, you begin to rebuild your inner self, okay? There's so many bad habits that you've created. There's so many bad connections and people that you have been around. And so you start to build a new life and a new side. And as you do that, the biggest hiccup that most people hit along the way is when they fail and they've done everything else, 1, 2, come all this way, and then they screw up. Don't let that sink you, okay? Don't internalize the screw up. It's part of the process, okay? I went through 5 rehabs and 3 detox centers, and each one taught me something different. Every place that I went to had a different environment, different people. They were using different techniques to stay sober, whether it was 12-step, whether it was going to church, whether it was a work program. Because I went to one, all we did was work, okay? I was detoxing on day 3 when I was there, and I went to work on day 3. And I'm talking laying in the dirt under the table where I'm working, where I could literally not stand. And the guy comes up and says, you need to get up and do your job. It's part of your rehab. And whether that, I don't agree with that. I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, but it taught me something. It taught me something about digging deep. And each one of those places taught me that you might not find it all in one place. And while I wish nobody to go through 7 rehabs or to take the amount of time it took me to get sober, just be aware that when you fail, okay, you can get right back up, okay? Well, if something doesn't work out or you're disappointing yourself, don't internalize it every time. Maybe it's not you, maybe it's circumstantial. You're bigger than that, you're better than that. And everybody that's bigger and better than that can still mess up. So this process of committing to the process and knowing that each person has a little different avenue of finding themselves, finding what is going to keep them on the right path. There's steps to that process. Don't start at just thinking you're going to get sober and stay sober. It's not that easy. So start by taking the proper steps. That's my greatest encouragement, is take the proper steps and then work yourself to a place to where you can begin to believe in yourself. I graduated in July of 2017, and just for a kind of a reference of a time frame of what I went through, in January of 2018, I had achieved so much and was in such a good place and had my own place, but that's when I relapsed. So within 6 months, I relapsed. So I'd released this video, and I had achieved so much, and I had had so many messages. I mean, I had hundreds of people contacting me and, talking to me about what their kids were going through. And then I relapsed, and I went through this dark time where I almost lost everything again. But I found a way out, and I did everything that I knew to do, and I applied everything that I knew I had to apply. The first rehab I went to was you know, I didn't think I got anything out of it because I relapsed immediately. But the thing is, I still learned things in there. There were sayings that people would say, things that I wrote down that I carried with me. Every part of that journey ended up getting me out of that dark place 8 months after rehab, and it all helped me get out of that. So that was in February, March of 2018. So now we're 18 months later, and I haven't used. I feel far from drugs. And how have I done that? You know, while life is a struggle, first of all, I humbled myself. I humbled myself, and I would never say I will never relapse. I will never say I will never use, or I can't do this, I can't do that. The words that come out of your mouth are powerful. And I've learned that throughout time because I was speaking death over myself. The very thing I didn't want, I was saying that I was probably going to happen. And I quit doing that on this last round. So now 18 months later, you know, I feel far from drugs. I feel very thankful for the journey that I've been on. And as hard as it was, I wouldn't trade it because I've learned things along the way that I think are going to propel me into the next part of my life. You know, every one of those rehabs, every one of those relapses, every time that I had to humble myself, that I screwed up, that I, you know, tried to internalize, I shouldn't have done that. But those all built something. They built character within me. They built a knowing, a belief that I can do this. And so today I have a belief system that knows that no matter what I'm faced with, because of the things I've been through, that's my ammunition, and I'm going to use those things to get out. So if you're looking for help and you want to get out of a dark place and you don't know how, you don't know who to turn to, maybe you don't have the right people in your life, look, I'd be happy to connect you guys to anything, the places that I went through, all the rehabs and the connections that I have. So please feel free to message me on my Facebook. Find me on Facebook, Jason Miller, send me a message, and I'll make sure to connect you to some good sources. Thanks, guys.